And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Showing Up Whole, the place where we discuss balance in mind, body, heart, and spirit in every aspect of our lives. And today we are going to be talking about a very important aspect of our lives, not just the wholeness of ourselves, but in relationships, how we show up in those relationships and how to get the most best communication within those relationships so that those in the relationships can also be whole in themselves. We are talking to relationship coach and communication coach, Terrie Lewine, who is here to discuss nonviolent communication and all sorts of beautiful relationship magic. So here we go. And hello, Terrie. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, and I hope that the information I can share will be super helpful and
I'm sh-
practical.
I'm sure it will be. We are all about practicalities here. We are all about making sure that things are tangible and usable right in the moment because there's no time to waste. So let's talk relationships. Where do we even begin, and how do we dive into the deeper understanding of the role communication plays within that? I think so many people are are feeling at odds in relationships these days. What relationships are we talking about? Are we talking about relationships as a whole, or relationships, just partnership relationships? Where are we at?
Well, as most people say, your relationship with yourself and then
Ooh.
relationships with your partner. I do a lot of coaching of couples, but I also go into organizations. How do you do team building? How do you talk to people? So, how do you talk to people so that they understand what you're actually asking for? And that starts with you knowing exactly why, and what you're asking for. And so being quite intentional about that, whether it's with your children, your partner, your mom, you know, the person in the street, or the clerk. So really, this is a robust work for everyone.
Ooh, I love it. I love it because I mean, here on this podcast, I do a lot of different conversations and just me talking alone about actual intention and really knowing what you're going in to say. And sometimes people have said to me, like, how do you actually just jump on in front of a microphone and actually just start speaking? And it is about knowing what you want to say, what you need to say. I know we'd mentioned just before coming on that, talking about what you need, which is such a foundational point of nonviolent communication. So, why don't we start there? How do you know what you want to say?
Great. And I think it sounds so easy. It's like, yes, I should. But we don't. We
No.
literally have been trained to track outside of ourselves from very, very young
Mhm,
for the happiness of the other.
mhm,
Which, as a kid, as a young person, as a baby and a kid, it's sort of how we stay safe. But
mhm.
as an adult, it is not a an effective strategy to get our needs met. But we have to learn to track inside. So, for example, if you're upset, I might have feelings about that, and what are they? So, am I trying to make you happy? No. Uh, if you so Needs are basically the cause of all of our feelings. So, if you're saying something and I'm unhappy, it's because I'm reminded of a need of mine that is not getting met in this very moment. So, what we're going to do, and what I help people do, is really pull apart you for me, and what is it that is causing my distress, or actually my
Mm.
happiness. We put our happiness on other people too, and neither one is great. So hopefully in our talk today, we'll be able to distinguish the strategy to meet the need, which is asking you to do something or asking you to say something, from the need that will get met if you say yes to my request.
Oh, okay.
So there's a simple structure in nonviolent communication, which is you observe what happened, being able to distinguish what actually happened. What did you say or do that has my attention? Not what I think you said or did. When you were angry, it's like, no, when you talked louder than I wanted you to, or when you stomped up the stairs. And it's like, no, when I heard you come up the stairs. Mostly because we want to, in our communication, have a starting point that we agree. Because if I
Mm.
start with, you stomped up the stairs, no, I didn't, yes, you did, no, I didn't. That's it. We'll never stop there. So then we want to be able to say our feelings, which is also very hard. Most people say, I feel like, and then they tell a good story. I feel like
Mhm.
you shouldn't have blah, 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 which there's no feeling words in there. And it's because of the need that I'm longing for. So if you said, hey, I'm going out with friends and I'm not inviting you, I might feel scared for the quality of our connection. I might want some assurance, which is a need. I might want companionship. I don't want to be home alone. And so then I can start to talk, make a request or an offer that will help me meet the need of companionship or trust or whatever that is.
The thing that really stands out in this, and listening to you talk about this, and I've had a couple of conversations with people about nonviolent communication before, but it's really standing out listening to you talk about this, and that it's so solution focused. This is a pathway of people who want good communication because it creates solutions, and
It's very practical in my work.
it
It's
is.
I am
And
not a therapist. We can go into the why. Well, my mother did this, or I grew
yeah,
up here, I have some trauma, which is important stuff.
yeah.
But really, it's just about what do I do now? What are the practical little things that I can do right now that will make an actual pretty big shift in either my own personal experience of the world and my experience of my relationships.
Well, and what's fascinating about it too is I think so often, I think we've all been in a situation where we tell the more dramatized version of like, I felt you were stomping up the stairs, which is such a great example. But we do that for the need to feel justified or the need to feel like the other person's wrong. And you can't have a solution focused balanced communicated relationship when you're determined to have one person right and one person wrong.
Exactly. I have an objective sheet that I hand out or give to clients, and the first thing on it is uh, dropping out of shame and blame and moralistic judgment and finding fault, and
Mhm.
dropping into trying to find the humanness. What needs was that other person, right?
Mhm.
So what needs were they trying to meet when they did the thing that I
Yes.
don't like?
Yeah.
you know and if unless I can really be curious, so it's dropping. We will never stop fighting. You will never end a conflict if you're trying to find fault,
Ex-
because it's like, well, if you didn't do that, I wouldn't have done this. And it's the ultimate in not being responsible for the experience that I'm having. And it's like, yeah, well, there's certain things everyone would agree that are bad, and it's great, but
It
it
doesn't
may
get you
even
anywhere.
be true, but it will not end the conflict.
Yes.
It
Exactly.
won't end the conflict. So you must drop out of finding fault, deciding who's right and who's wrong, or moralistic judgment, good, bad, right, wrong, and into curiosity. What were you hoping for? Because I feel awful right now. Is that what you were hoping for? No, of course not. Although sometimes people will say yes, but we can. It's a little bit more advanced.
That's we won't talk about those people. But
Well,
also,
there's a way when they say yes, it's even underneath it. There's a precious need. They're
yes.
hurt,
Well, and you
and
have to go, well, why? Why would you, that person? What is the motivation? I have to say that this is such an important conversation for the world we live in now, because it feels like we have things like cancel culture. We have things like people. I mean, I look at it with my daughters who are teens, and I look at their situations that they experience online, and I just go, it's all very quick. Like people communicate now in this blaming exchange. And that's what everyone's brains are almost, it feels like everyone's being programmed in order to just have this, well, who's right? Who's wrong? Who's right? Who's wrong? And that's it's like flashcards. And the minute you say, well, I think that person's right, then it's this torrent of kind of justification. I love, I mean, that's something that I naturally step away from. And I'm always looking at going, oh, but why? And what is that person? I drive a lot of people crazy. So I love how what you're describing is truly releasing that sense of needing to blame and that sense of needing to be right as well, because those are just the same balance.
And I also think it's not so empowering. It's how we lose our power. When we give someone else the power, I just think it's not true. We do not hurt other people's feelings and other people do not hurt ours. It is my own sort of meaning that I make from what you do and say that has me feeling hurt. So I have it as a we thing, like it's not. I
Mhm.
used to kind of have it like it's just me and how I feel, which is true. But if you didn't do and say the things you did, I wouldn't be having it. So if we're in a relationship, it matters that my feelings matter to you, but you are not responsible for them. And the more that we get, I want you to matter. So it's, here's, I'll say it another way, especially in the current culture that we're in.
Mm.
People think we should be responsible for the impact of what I say and do. And I'm close to that, but it's a very nuanced thing. I will be responsible to the impact, but not for it, because I can't possibly know what your history is and what's going to upset you or not upset you. Once you're upset, I will care and I will talk to you about what needs are alive for you, what happened for you when I did or said the thing that you didn't like. I'm right here. I am not going anywhere. I'm up for that conversation. But when you blame me for how you feel, we'll never get out of that. Never. And so it's just not useful.
That's such a powerful nuance. I've got it. That's so incredibly powerful because this we are evolving in communication in this very strange way where that's exactly what it is everyone wanting other people to claim responsibility for how you feel. And it doesn't work that way. Now, in that rather triggered society that we live in, um
Yes.
how do we show up in that? How do we actually find that space of saying, actually, I'm no longer responsible for how you feel, but I am showing up for how you feel? And
Yeah.
how how do we
I'll
how do we
say in
find
a
that within
couple of ways.
ourselves?
In our personal relationships, I think it's much easier because
Mm,
we're right here and, we can talk about it and people are more invested. In the larger culture, where people are sort of the consent culture and
mhm,
all that kind of stuff, where people are taking their power back, I really, I just wrote a blog on it about the difference between taking power and equity as needs. And so I think we're in a moment of time in our growth as a culture where people are taking their power back. Disempowered people are taking their power back, but it's inside the blame game.
I was just going to say that.
So
Yeah.
yes, and so like if someone calls somebody out in my work as a mediator, if I'm doing that, and someone says, "Well, this person did something to me," and it's like, but I don't ever want to talk to them. You can't, and if you do, then you're siding with the people who've always had the power, and it's like, right, but you're blaming them, and so it's like I think there's something different. We just need to be present to the fact that people are taking their power back and blaming you for the loss of it for however many years or centuries it is. So it's different than, yes, I can understand my privilege and my role and the history of my people, or, whatever
The
the groups
conversation
are.
is, yep.
Hmm. And, just make room for it and just really hold space for how painful it has been. And when people don't have power and they're just taking it back, I don't think we're really going until we move into that. What do we ask for? What do we offer? How do we get equity? And stop blaming, let's just say, women blaming men,
Hmm.
until we want to together, or all came up in this culture of inequity.
Yeah.
And how do we now, how do we change the system? It's a bigger question now. So I just want to put that out there. In the role of my family and raising children, how do I, it's much easier to raise your children, weaving your own needs in equal to theirs, which I also think is a challenge because a lot of parents don't want to, oh, well, their needs are more important than mine. Well, they're not.
Thank you. I
Kids'
totally
needs
agree.
are not, they're not more important, but they're equally important. So your need for nourishment, your need for well-being, and your need for creativity is equal to my need for those things. And so how are we from birth going to navigate sharing a house together and a home and a relationship? And so raising kids who know how to navigate my needs as not just another human being that happens to be older and
Hmm.
given birth equal to their own.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it seems like these mirror each other so that you have the relationships at home where you do, I think at home, we have a tendency to put other people's needs above our own.
Correct.
And we don't, and so we put those other people's needs above our own and we'll sacrifice our needs for the other people. However, out in the world, there's a tendency to put our needs above other people's. So there's
Right.
this interesting where so people have a tendency to want the blame outside the home on other people not listening to their needs, and yet within the home we have a tendency to deny our needs. And so there's this interesting something that came up in a conversation a few weeks ago. I can't even remember if it was on the podcast now or not, so I apologize to anyone who's listening to this. But this concept of autonomy, for everyone to have their own autonomy, and it's something that I've been really looking at just as a deep dive for myself personally, of actually leaning into what that really means, because I think that changes as children grow up. We have a tendency to learn how to give more and more of the power to their own autonomy, of them claiming their own needs themselves and giving them the tools to say, yeah, you know what, whatever your needs are, tell me and we'll deal with it. But don't ask me to actually just be guessing these all the time and running around trying to meet them anymore. They're yours.
Right. And yes, they're your needs, and we want to train them up to be autonomous. And for me, I think it's something that we don't do as parents. We tell them, oh, well, we have to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we just say we have to. We make a random rule rather than, you know what, I have work
Yep.
and my job is to feed you. And
Yep.
so there is a thing called protective use of force or practical use of force. And so with a kid, yeah, you want to play in the street, but it's just not going to happen on my watch. Your safety is more important
Yeah.
than play. And so I can navigate your play. And yeah, I just think it's really important for me to own, even in my kids' relationship. Yeah, I don't, what's important to you is important to me. It may be that the fact that you're upset that you didn't get the red balloon, you get to have your feelings, because for a 4-year old, not getting a red balloon is pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right? And so, of course, you're sad, rather than me saying, just get over it. No, yes, you're sad, and I'll listen for 10 minutes because I care. And then, because my job is to nourish the family, I'm going to go in the kitchen and cook dinner. And you can be sad or not sad, but I don't have to be sad because you're sad.
Yeah.
That's yours. You can feel sad. I can feel totally fine, and I still care. It's this piece of, how do I care without changing how you feel?
Oh, I love it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In order to show up in that, though, do you find that your needs have to be met? And is it a question of you meeting your own needs in order to show up in that?
The way that I see it is, again, it's a negotiation. I need to know what my needs are,
Mm.
because, again, we conflate usually strategies to meet the needs with the needs themselves. So I might say, listen, the only way I can be happy is if you come home at 9 o'clock. And it's like, well, no. Why? Because I want to feel safe. Maybe safety is the need. Maybe companionship is the need. Maybe consideration is the need. And it's like, well, what are all the 3 to 12 other ways that I could have those needs met other than this one strategy. Because if I only have one strategy, like I can only make it mean you care about me if you come home at 9. Well, then I'm going to be hyper focused on that, and we're going to argue about it whether I do care about it or you do care about me. You just can't get home at 9,
Yeah.
or don't want to, like even don't want to. And so um how do we
That's such a
work?
good
It's like,
example.
I don't want to come home at 9, but I do care. So how do we talk about this in a way that all of our needs get met? So in relationship, they all matter equally. And we just talk and talk until we can find strategies that meet them. And here's another piece. You don't have to be the one that does something. I could ask my friends if I want companionship and you're going to be home at 10, not 9. Maybe I go out with friends. Maybe I call my mom. Maybe I do game night. Maybe I go to a class. And so my needs for companionship are met, and you are free. And I want to talk about this because you asked me about
Hmm.
autonomy. So your autonomy needs are met. You can go out and do your work or whatever that is that has you out of the house till 10. I also want to say that autonomy is a need, but equal to autonomy, interdependence. We are pack animals. Humans are pack animals. So we are at the same moment interdependent and autonomous, and finding that, because we're separate,
Yeah.
and we live in a modern culture. So it
Yeah.
it looks like our autonomy and independence rather than interdependence is valued in our culture so much. But here's the thing: when I look at that and think,
Hmm.
oh, I'm independent because I can, I don't need you to get my shirt or whatever. It's like, well, I'm not independent. I just have money. Like one of my needs is met because there's people who grow the cotton,
Right.
probably in some other country. There's the truck, there's the people who harvest it. There's the people who turn it into thread. There's the people who weave it into a shirt. There's the truck driver or the boat driver, however it got here. There's thousands of people, right? That make it so that I can have a piece of paper in front of me or a t-shirt that I'm wearing, and I
Right.
am dependent on all of them. All of them. We just don't acknowledge it because we don't see them. And we pretend that having money is a strategy to meet a need for security and well-being and safety. But money in and of itself is a strategy.
Oh, that's brilliant. Because I think so many people immediately, when they think needs, these are the things that they think of. They think of needs of stability. Oh, I need money.
Security would be the need, financial security or security. So I might have a farm, and that's how I get my food.
Mm,
And so I need less money.
right. Right. All right. So let's turn this around a little bit, as reflectant for anyone listening to this. How do you figure out what you need? Or
Well,
do
there's
your
many.
need actually, let me rephrase that, because do your needs do you find that your needs are overarching theme of a needs, or do the needs change depending on the relationship?
I have a list of needs or needs cards. We don't have a picture. I was going to hold them up. So I think the first thing is that we, again, like I said earlier, we track outside ourselves for our well-being because
Mm-hmm.
we're a disconnected culture. So
Yep.
the first thing is to take a pause, and it's like, well, what's important to me? So if I'm having a feeling, whether it's joy, but people don't usually get in fights when they're joyous, but they do put their happiness on somebody else, and then when they leave, they're devastated. But we're just going to put that aside.
Yep.
I'm upset and I have it that you shouldn't have done the thing. Well, that's a very unpowerful place to come from. So why am I upset? And the first question is, okay, just to take a pause, what's important to me? How do I know what's alive in me that has me in distress? So if you said, I will be over at 3 and make you dinner, and it's now, and you didn't come, I'm in distress. Why? Well, trust, dependability, reliability, maybe quality of connection. There are needs that are coming to the top of my mind. Nourishment, if you were making me dinner and I wasn't feeling well, and I really needed
Mm-hmm.
someone to make me dinner. Um, those are the needs, right? So you look at the list in the beginning because we are not really aware of what they are. We don't
No.
really track inside. And so for some people, especially me, when I started learning this, I'm like, wow, these words are foreign to me. They're literally foreign. It's like, no, I'm so upset. It can't be companionship. No, you're a blah, blah, blah. And, the whole thing is what's important to me. And once I know that, then I can make a list of 12 ways or 5 ways that I can have this experience that I say I'm longing for. So, one of them, like, well, let's say it's respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I want respect, and the way you're talking to me is, you're cursing me out, or you're, not looking at me, or you're hanging up on me. And so I'm longing for respect inside our relationship. There's two pieces to that. Yes, I can ask you for something. Could you talk quieter? Could you come over? Could we really talk about what happened between us? So I would have respect.
Right.
But I can also, one thing that people tend not to track on is what they say and do. Is it generating respect? Is what I'm saying. I say it's important to me, but am I cursing you out? Am I blaming you? Is that respect? Am I generating in the things I say and do? So taking care of our own side is so important, and we forget. We just are out there. You need to do this so I can be happy. And it's like, well, I need to, let's say I'm in a personal relationship and I really value honesty. And you tell me something that I don't want to hear. And I start telling you about how much I don't want to hear it in ways that are blaming. And it's like, well, am I inviting honesty? Can I be upset about what I'm hearing and equally joyous that you're willing to tell me, because that's what I've asked you for. I've asked you for honesty, and I am grateful that you feel confident in our relationship to tell me your truth. Now it's my job to hold it.
Yeah.
Like, wow, thank you for telling me that. I'm really celebrating that we have honesty. Then I can say, wow, that is great. And without blaming you for what you said, can I say, listen, I want to tell you what that was hard for me to hear. And I would love to tell you what's alive for me in what you shared. I feel scared. I feel scared about, what you might do given what you told me.
Brilliant. Brilliant. It's again, what does come up is how powerfully it's working towards solutions. And it's interesting because I think that what often prevents people from not wanting to let go of the blame is that pride card of not wanting to do that first releasing of needing to be right, but also more there tends to be this, we tell ourselves these stories to keep us safe, and it's that triggered state of being to keep us safe, which again, as you would say, the need is to be safe, but even looking within to learn that that's what we're trying to do is another way of keeping us safe, if that makes sense. It's so many layers of safety that we don't want to necessarily know what those needs are.
This is complicated,
This is
and I'm really
complicated.
glad
I
that
said we
you
go
brought
deep.
it up. I just am really glad because there's a couple things. One is because we are pack animals, we need each other to survive.
Yeah.
Although it seems like we don't, we actually do. And so evolutionarily, our safety mattered by being part of the tribe. And so my need for contribution, my need to matter, my need for belonging, if people are upset, if you just guess those three, like if you talk to them like they're scared that they're going to get kicked out of the pack, like if I can't contribute to the pack, I will, like back in the day, my hardwiring, my biochemistry is designed to have me freak out.
Yeah.
Because if I'm alone out there in the frozen tundra, I will not make it. If I have my tribe, we all take care of each other. We live in a modern world where this is where autonomy and independence get confused because we don't, it's not obvious to us that I need you for my t-shirt when I can just go and buy one. I don't even
Yep.
go anywhere, quite
Yep.
frankly. So
Amazon.
exactly. So the but my biochemistry is screaming it is not safe if I can't contribute to you. So this gets complicated in our relationships, why we need to say thank you so that the other person will know that they contribute, but that I can know it's very hard sometimes for me to feel calm because I am actually safe, even though my body is saying I'm not, right? Because let's say in my relationship that I've had,
Mm.
we don't live together. If he left me, I'd be sad. There'd be lots of needs that wouldn't get met, but one of them wouldn't be my safety. I pay my own bills. My life would go on. There's lots of things that I would lose. And I like to distinguish as much as we can because there are cultures that actually aren't safe right now. But let's just say most of us say when we're talking to each other, I want to be safe to talk to you. And what that means is I don't want to feel my feelings. So if you say something I don't like,
Yes.
I call that not safe. And it's just like, no, that means I'm making you responsible for my well being.
Oh,
And it's
I'm
like, no,
so
say
glad you
whatever you
brought that up.
want.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Do you want to say
No,
something
I was just
about
gonna say
that?
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think that is such a powerful way of seeing what our own inner safety is that ability to be able to express our feelings rather than feeling unsafe to have. Very well said. Anyway, I apologize for interrupting because
Yeah,
that was great.
and no, it's great because it's like, well, am I strong enough? Am I powerful enough to hear you disagree with me about something that's super important to me? This is where the crux of what we're talking about. How do you and I talk about things we don't agree on
Mhm.
and stay connected, not lose our connection and make powerful choices? So when I'm doing couples coaching, my job is not to keep the couple together. And NVC,
Mhm.
which is also called or nonviolent communication, which is also called compassionate communication, people sometimes think and they hear me say I'm not responsible for your feelings and you're not responsible for mine. It's like we don't get to say anything we want. This is about how do we navigate life? How do we navigate conflict in a way that is, again, full of curiosity and respect, and then dive into and make choices about the relationship that serves us the best. So let's say we're partners and we've been partners for 10 years, and now 10 years have passed, and I'm interested in this, and you're interested in, and we may not be partners anymore. We may not, most couples get together because we're cute or something. And we live in a house, we decide to live together, and we do not have the conversations about do we eat dinner together? Do we just make assumptions based on the cultural reality? And now it's like I find, again, wait a minute, you're not going to come to bed at 9 o'clock with me? What's that? Or we're not eating dinner together? What's that? We just didn't talk about it
Yeah.
because we were in love and we got married or we just decided to live together. Well, how do we talk about it now that it's a thing? Or your clothes are all over the living room floor. And I'm insisting that you pick them up because order is important to me. You don't even see the clothes on the floor. So you picking up your own clothes as a strategy to meet my need for order is probably not going to work because you're going to pick up the one sock and leave the other four because you don't even see them. And I see all the socks and the pieces of dirt around them. And so, again, what strategies could I make for order in my home without demanding that you do something that it's almost impossible for you to do?
Love it. I love it because you are giving the other person the autonomy in order to be the person that can't see the socks. And as someone who often rarely can't see the socks, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and there's probably many ways to meet order.
Yes. Yes. And it's but at the same time, you're creating the environment where, because that communication is taking place, then those strategies can be put in place without that blame and without the anger and without the conflict. The other thing that comes up, though, and this is something that I'll often tell clients that I work with, that of there's a sense of firing people from these roles. It seems like the roles and expectations that we bring into these relationships, they need to be disregarded.
Can you find your autonomy inside the relationship is what I like to ask people.
Yes.
Because sometimes they feel burdened because, again, it's this, in our time together, we're not going to unpack all of it, but I have it that it's your fault that my house is a mess.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I'm finding blame, but it's also, so now you're that person they're in their own home too, and they can't live the life that they just want freedom to leave their socks wherever they want them.
Yes.
And so how do we talk about that? How do we navigate where it's like, oh yeah, how do I even care? Because I have it that I'm right, the house should be tidy. And you have it that like, what? Tidy? Like, who has time for that?
Yeah.
I have a busy life. I have other things that I track on. I don't want to be picking up socks. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of ways to have a tidy home. It's like, do we have enough money to hire someone to tidy it up? Will you care? Will you be the tidier, and I'll take this other thing on that, so that you have the time and the freedom to be the tidier. Do you have to be mad at me? Does it have, it's all this stuff.
Even just that one sentence, do you have to be mad at me?
Right, that's blame. Anger is something
what
outside of me is wrong.
What a great way to interrupt conflict.
Well, the way that I see conflict is new information coming into the system. When we don't make room for the conflict, where I say you should be neat, right? So I've just discovered that you should not throw your socks on the floor. If I'm not willing to make room for that conversation, then it becomes violent. Then it becomes blame. But the conflict is we're of a difference of opinion. You think socks should be on the floor and I think they shouldn't. That's conflict. There's no argument until we argue. And until I make room for who you are and who I am, and then let's talk about it without being mad at each other. What are our options here?
Beautiful. Beautiful, because what it disengages is the energy behind well, I was raised to have the socks put away neatly, and my mother was raised to have and I know that it is right by like historic proof that that's the way this should be, and there must be something wrong with you for having them on the floor. And it disengages that whole conversation and actually leads into the word that you used earlier of curiosity, of being like, so I'm curious.
Their needs matter equal to mine, and we forget that.
Yes.
What do you need? Well, I need some freedom. I need, I need time. I need, I want you to care about me. Like, again, one of the things when we get upset is, am I actually caring about this somebody else? And with whether it's a partner or kids, we make random rules for our kids and try to get them to follow them rather than say, how do we navigate this? Even at 2 and 3 and 4, if they're getting raised up that way, they'll learn how to navigate. I think they'll be in a much better place as adults.
Absolutely.
To navigate time with other people than possibly we have learned in our young lives.
Absolutely.
So we struggle with other people.
Okay, and I could talk to you about this all day long. I will tell you. It's very easy to do. Okay, so knowing your own needs has to be the first step. Actually, becoming curious to look within yourself and ask yourself about your own needs. Now, say you're in a partnership. How do you introduce this within a partnership? Or how do you introduce, actually, any relationship? No, any relationship. How do you introduce this when you have the person shouting at you because their needs aren't being met? How do you find that bridge?
Well, I'm asked this a lot. The first thing is that for me to be responsible for myself. So someone is upset with me now, right?
Mm,
And I'm the socker. I'm the one leaving the socks. Or let's say we both liked vanilla ice cream. All of a sudden, I've tasted chocolate, and now I want chocolate ice cream in my freezer. And we only have room for 1 pint of ice cream a week. And you're upset about it. And it's like, how dare you? Like, what's going on? Like you're betraying me, right? Well,
mm.
betraying is not something I can do. So remember when I was talking about observation?
Yep.
I can't, when I say you've betrayed me, or when you say to me you've betrayed me, you're telling me that I've done something. Like, what did I actually say or do? It's like, oh, I've changed the flavor of ice cream. When I noticed that when I saw chocolate ice cream in the freezer, I felt sad and scared. I'm really wanting some understanding, and I'm wondering, will you tell me how that got in there? We've always agreed that vanilla was our flavor. And so I'm feeling a little bit afraid and curious about what's happening here, rather than what's really happening is I'm afraid that you met someone and they like chocolate and you're going to leave me. And I don't even know it,
Right.
right? Like all of us, again, this is a silly example, but that does happen. It's like, wow, I'm really afraid that you went to lunch with Mary Beth and you didn't invite me. Again, I'm pack animals. My need for belonging and to matter and to have some assurance that you care. And so when but you're like, how dare you say I can't have chocolate ice cream? And I'm like, or you're saying that to me, and I would just say, listen, let's say you're just saying, I can't believe there's chocolate ice cream in there. What the hell is going on? What's wrong
Right.
with you? We've always been in agreement and you didn't even ask. And it's like, so my response to you in a needs based conversation is, wow, this sounds really important to you, right? So even with kids, it sounds like this is important. You seem very upset and I really care. And I want to understand better what about this is important to you.
Mm.
What about it? It's like, well, you're eating chocolate ice cream. We've never done that before. And it's like, the change. Maybe you're a little bit nervous about how I found the ice cream. Like, what part about this is what you want me to hear? And so there are ways that I can start to ask for the need without saying, can you tell me what your needs are? Because people don't know what their needs
No.
are. My dad, he never knew what the needs are, but I could listen for them.
Right.
It's like, oh, he is saying that here's a real example. Like, you'll never listen to me, Terrie. And what I ended up when I learned this work was like, wow, that person loves me. Cares about me, and that is the words he is using. Is he's saying, I care about you, and I love you, and I want you to be well in the world. That
Mm.
is, even though what he said was, you'll never listen to me, or you'll never get it. But what he's actually saying underneath that is, I care deeply about you and I want you to thrive. And if I can just hear that,
Yeah.
Marshall Rosenberg, who developed the work of NVC, said, you'll never hear another complaint and you'll never hear another criticism if you're translating the jackal thoughts, the thoughts, the assessments of stuff, the hurt and the pain and the criticism. If I can translate it fast enough, I'll never hear it. I'll just hear the precious needs underneath what they're saying. And at the
I
beginning, I'm,
Yeah.
no way, that is not true. And now
No, it is.
it's true.
It is 100% true. And I know that even without this work that I can experience that. Now, something that some people have brought up to me, and I want to just throw this out there before we wrap this up, because I think it's just an important thing for people listening to this. Sometimes, or what people have said to me is like, yes, but then sometimes that is condoning an abusive relationship, or that is condoning abusive behavior, or that is condoning the narcissist. And so therefore so I think it's important just for anyone listening to this that they understand the approach of that, because otherwise in some situations it's easy to make excuses. So
Well, this again, like I'm saying, this is the powerful work. Are we willing? Because if I live with somebody who does not care about me or who is unable to, right,
mhm,
because of their history, right? So yeah, I want to give it the college try. And then it's my job to meet my own needs. So if you want to hit me over the head with a baseball bat, I'll die for your right to do that. Not to me. I'm out. So it's how do I become responsible to meet my own needs? It is my job, not yours. And I think that people stay in relationships that are not pleasant over and over again because I ask you over, will you pick up the socks? Oh, yeah. Will you pick up the socks? Oh, yeah. And you never do. And so I stay mad at you. We're both resigned and resentful. And I'm not willing to say, you know what? I will die for your right to leave your socks wherever you want them. I don't want to live in a house with socks on the floor. And so I'm going to opt out. We will be friends forever. Let's go to dinner. You can have socks on your own living room floor. And even, here's the thing, if I'm in partnership, again, I've been in partnership for 23 years. We don't live together. If you want cleanliness, like, why not have different homes? Like, you can try the strategies, but in terms of the setting limits, and again, I know our time is limited, but rather than setting boundaries, which is focused outside, you must do this, you must do this, you must obey my rules, it's setting my own limits. I will do this for 3 weeks, and if you don't stop doing it, I would like to be in a different, I'd like to renegotiate a relationship into something wildly different because
And
I don't want this.
yes, and
It's
acknowledging
my
your
job.
needs is truly the way that you take your power back. And if you are in
Exactly.
something that's incredibly toxic, then your needs aren't being met. So therefore, sometimes if you can't communicate in a certain way, you have to communicate within yourself. Like what you said at the beginning when we started talking about the relationship within yourself, which is
Yeah.
we're going to
And
have
it's
that as
my
another
job.
podcast.
Yes, it is my job to meet my needs, not yours.
Because really all
And
these
I,
strategies is in that relationship as well, where you actually
right.
communicate with yourself on your own needs.
Yeah. And then, yeah, and people are, that's the tough one, shifting a partnership relationship into either co-parenting or just friends or,
Yeah.
but we stay until we hate each other.
Yeah. And because we are looking for other people to fulfill the needs. Oh, this is powerful. That amazing, amazing, amazing. This has been a fantastic conversation. I want everyone to know how to find you. What is your website again? I can't
It's
remember. Mm-hmm.
www.getbacktolife.org, TO,
Amazing.
not the number. So getbacktolife.org. I have a blog. You can sign up for that. I write, once a week, once every other week, something like that. All kinds of free resources up there.
Amazing.
And um, so that's where you can find me.
Amazing. All right. Well, we'll have all those links in the show notes. And I want to thank you again. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for all that you're
Thank
doing.
you.
All right.
I
Thank you.
really appreciate this conversation.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.